en tête, Polydor. Est-ce qu'Eddy Merckx a été gagné au sprint? Oui, probablement. Je ne crois pas qu'il va démarrer. D'ailleurs, cette côte n'est pas tellement longue. Eddy Merckx qui se retourne. Eddy Merckx, sur qui les journaux canadiens ont beaucoup écrit ces derniers jours. Et bien sûr, beaucoup d'admiration, mais aussi certaines critiques. Ils ont été surpris de voir notre champion qui n'était pas un champion souriant. Ils ont dit, tiens, c'est pas une vedette à l'américaine. Mais comprenant difficilement les problèmes d'un champion qui, depuis des années, vit au sommet, doit être toujours concentré. Eddy Merckx était très nerveux ce matin au départ, je vous l'ai dit, il avait sa figure des mauvais jours, c'est-à-dire des grands jours. Il ne souriait pas, il était très nerveux. Et maintenant, après avoir fait une course impeccable, il se trouve tout près du but. Vous voyez qu'il se retourne. Il est vraiment très attentif, il se retourne pour voir où sont les autres. Nous sommes dans la descente. Les coureurs sont à moins d'1 kilomètre de l'arrivée. Eddy Merckx vient de serrer sa courroie de calpier du pied gauche. Il serre ses courroies de calpier donc pour préparer le sprint. Polydor, oh la voiture vient beaucoup trop près là, ce n'est plus le moment, alors qu'il y a une caméra fixe qui va prendre le relais dans la ligne droite. Polydor en tête, Merckx en deuxième position. Voilà Polydor en tête, Merckx en deuxième position. Nous sommes dans la ligne droite d'arrivée, oh la voiture. Polydor qui se retourne, Merckx. En principe, il ne devrait pas y avoir de problème. Merckx se retourne voir si personne ne revient, il est très méfiant. Polydor en tête, Merckx en deuxième position, Merckx qui resserre ses courroies de calpier. Toujours Polydor, Merckx dans la roue. Merckx va s'y attendre longtemps. Voilà, Polydor qui prête sur les pédales. Et voilà Eddy Merckx qui attaque. Eddy Merckx qui attaque, qui part carrément en tête. Polydor dans la roue. Merckx part de loin en tête. Et Eddy Merckx va devenir champion du monde. Eddy Merckx va devenir champion du monde pour la 3e fois. Eddy Merckx, champion du monde, il égale le record de Van Steenbergen et de Binda. Deuxième Polydor à 2 secondes. Et bien voilà. Voilà, mission accomplie pour Eddy Merckx.
As I say, Ron Meadwell and I were in this final, and he it's always the way.
I know. Yeah.
I used to say to our Chris, if trade's dead, just put the kettle on. You can bet your life if you brew up, someone will come in. Hurry up.
Yeah.
Oh, to take them off?
No, you leave them on, it's fine. If you...
I can take them off if you want.
Well, it's up to you.
I don't see any better with them or without them. No, they don't make any difference really. When I first opened my shop in Oldham, I was scratching for agencies. But then there was this Ernie Clemens factory, and I thought, I'll have a go at him, see if he'll supply me with frames. And his family had a grocer's shop in this Sunnylilly, a village just outside Shrewsbury. And the van that they used to use for the shop, his father used to use to deliver the frames, and he used to deliver frames to me in Oldham. And occasionally I'd go down there. So eventually I became, you know, quite friendly with Ernie, I got quite well in with him, sort of thing. But then he got a job with a firm in Birmingham or Coventry, I forget, Coventry. But anyway, he got a job there as like the works manager. But he persuaded them to make cheap sports bikes and sell them in this country. And they called it the Falcon. And, you know, he proved a winner. He put the firm on its feet. They could sell these. They were only cheap, but they were good value for money, I'll put it that way. They weren't everybody's cup of tea, but the connoisseurs wouldn't want one. But, I mean, if somebody wanted a cheap sports bike, they were as good as what you could buy anywhere for that sort of money. So it was quite successful. And they continued to make the bike called the Falcon, but they started doing more upmarket models, and then you could have one with 531 tubing or 531 butted, and there was no doubt about it. Under Ernie's managership, the firm grew and grew and grew, and they opened a new factory at near Northwich. And he put his brother in charge. His brother had just come away from university, Roy. And by this time, he'd got very friendly with Eddy Merckx, and he'd signed Eddy Merckx up to manufacture quality bikes with Eddy Merckx transfers on. And Eddy was no slouch, he was a businessman, and what he did, he supplied the decals, the transfers, so many 100 or 1,000 to Ernie Clemens, and he paid him so much per transfer. And as far as Ernie Clemens or Eddy Merckx was concerned, that meant a bicycle. In other words, if he sent him 1,000 transfers, that meant he'd sold 1,000 bikes with Eddy Merckx's name on. So everything was going fine. And he opened this factory. And by this time, Eddy Merckx, this would be about 1975, I think, he'd won the World Championship in 74. So he opened this factory and we were all invited to go. I've got pictures somewhere. Reg Harris was there, and one or two more. Harry Hall was there, I was there, Nobby Clark, and one or two of the bigger cycle dealers from the Manchester area for the opening of the factory. And Eddy Merckx was there, you see. And this bike was on show. And I just had a thought about it. So I got on the phone to Ernie. I said, Ernie, yes. I said, I believe Eddie's stopping with you tonight, isn't he? Him and Kessels, his manager. He said, yes, they are. I said, well, you know this bike that's on show? He said, yes. I said, I'd like to buy it. And he laughed, you see. So I said, what are you laughing at? He said, you're not serious, are you? I said, of course I'm serious. He says, it's a World Championship bike. He said, he won't sell that. I said, Ernie, you know as well as I do. I said, pros will sell anything. I said, how do you know he won't sell it? I said, if the money's right, he'll sell it. No, he won't. I said, well, listen, tonight, I said, when the wine's flowing and he's in a good mood, I said, just bring the subject up and see what the reaction is. And he laughed again. And he says, you're a real card, you are, he says. I'll try, but he said, you're wasting your time, Gerry. I said, well, we'll see. So we left it at that. So a day or two after I rang him up, how would he go? He says, well, he said, it's like I say, he said, he didn't even consider it, but he says, at least, he said, the bike is still, he said, he's allowed to leave the bike with me because he said, we're going to show it off at different dealers throughout the country, some of the main dealers, you know, the people we do the most business with. He said, and at various shows we're going to show the bike off. And Frank Clemens, he was like the Falcon rep in the States, and he had the bike in the States for quite a while, and he was touring it round the States, showing it off there, you know. So, as long as the bike was in this country, I knew I was in with a chance, you see. Although I didn't give a lot of thought to it, and I wasn't very hopeful. And then, I'm guessing now, but as near as I could tell you, it was about 4 months later. The phone rings one day, and it's Ernie Clemens, and he said, when are you likely to come over again? I said, I hadn't thought about it, Ernie. Why? He says, well, he said, I think we might have pulled it off. He said, I think he's going to part with it. Oh, I said, in that case, I said, I'll come tomorrow. So, he laughed, you know. He says, I can't believe it. He said, I said, you know what I said to you? I said, pros will sell anything. And that was how it took me about 4 months to buy it. I'm guessing at 4 months, but I don't think I'm far out. It was quite a while. And I went over to Barton-on-Humber, and it was they'd put it in a carton, you know, and all fastened up, and I brought it back with me. I bought a lot of cars for less money than I paid for that bike. But that's how I bought it, yes. And then, I can't remember how I got the other one. I initially went to buy 2 frames. He said, there are two frames here. He said, would you be interested? I said, of course I'm interested. I said, if the price is right, I said, I'll buy them. So he said, well, we'll leave it till the next time you come over. And when I went, there was the 2 frames, and there was what I call the second bike. There was another Eddy Merckx bike there. And obviously I bought a lot. But I was lucky, it was the way it works. Yeah. That's Ferdy Kettles, that's Eddy Merckx' manager. That's Eddy Merckx, of course. That handsome one is me. That one next to him is Ernie Clemens' brother, Frank, and that's his other brother, Roy. It was the year after he won it, 75 probably, yeah. It would be 75, yeah. Would be 75. Amazing. Hmm. Hmm.